Hello, everyone. This is Fadi, and I want to welcome you back to basically the continuation of this new video series on the attractions of Islam, or why is Islam attractive. And as you've heard last time, Dr. J. Smith, who's done his own graduate research, his master's degree basically at Fuller Seminary, on this particular topic by sending a questionnaire, and collecting data from converts into Islam, supposedly Christians who converted to Islam, primarily focused on the eastern region of the United States. And he basically synthesized about 12 different reasons. Now, he did mention to you that basically in that episode that while the research was done back in the 80s, for the most part, and I would argue that these reasons still stand till this day. We watch and see and hear and read about people converting to Islam use these kind of reasons over and over again. Today we're going to start with reason number one, why Islam in the mind of those converts is an attractive religion. With that in mind, let's turn our attention to Dr. J. Smith. Dr. J, welcome back.
Good.
So what's the first reason again? Reminder to our viewers.
Social laws.
Right.
This is what I was surprised. In fact, quite a few of these I was quite surprised by. But then I'm not the one answering. I'm not the one who's gone through this conversion experience. So I had to listen to them. I would not have put this number one, but they did. What do I mean by that? So what they were saying is things like this. They were saying, Jay or Mr. Smith, they said, Islam is the only religion that has a comprehensive guide to life. It tells you how to walk, talk, eat, drink, sleep 24/7. Christianity doesn't. It pretty much lets you do what you want. You can go where you want. Just be modest in your dress. It doesn't tell you a dress code. You can eat whatever you want. It doesn't have a hygienic code whatsoever. It does tell you how to behave towards your wife and whatnot, but doesn't really tell you much more than that. And if you walk and you look outside, you don't know who's a Christian and who's not. Whereas you always know who's a Muslim by what they dress, by how they act, by the things they say. And they're very clear that this was an attraction for them. They like this idea of a disciplined lifestyle, the fact that Islam really disciplines you. Now, most of these guys and gals, especially most of them guys, there are very few gals, but they came to Islam in prison. Well, that's where they met Islam for the first time. Well, maybe not for the first time, but certainly in a context where they could really see it as a possibility. And the reason why is in a prison situation, you then join a club, or you join a group, or you join a gang. And the Muslims are there to protect you from other gangs. And they have done a great job of amalgamating lots of prisoners under one rubric, under Islam. And they always bringing a preacher in from outside, from one of the cities, mosques, and he comes in and he teaches them what they're to do. And it's always an Afro-American teacher. And of course, because of that, he would also stipulate, you must say this, you must do this, you must wear this, you must pray 5 times a day, you must make sure that you do the shahada, and you must abstain from any type of pork or wine. And so they would have their own regimen. In fact, in almost every prison, they just pretty much went the route of the Muslims. And so in almost all the prisons now, that's all they don't give any ham anymore or pork because the Muslims demand that. So they met Islam in prison. It was very disciplined, and they found it really turned their lives around. The women that I talked to, they felt protected by the hijab, the niqab, the jilbab. They felt protected as women, and they felt like they were just really seen as women. And women need to be protected by men. And they're not to be looked at, as sexual objects, and that's why they like the jilbab. So many of them like the purda because it covered their face. For the first time, they said, "I feel like I'm a real woman. I'm not looked at as a sexual object." So this is a huge attraction for them. They also like the fact that Islam is the only religion that really stands up to the depravity they saw in the West. And listen, there's plenty of examples of that. I can understand that. They said if Islam was the only one that stood up to the drug dealers, it was the only one that really threw them out of the neighborhoods. It's only the Muslims that are throwing them out of the neighborhoods. No churches are doing this. And that's why it gave that sense of solidarity, that sense of authority, that sense of power that Islam gives you as a male, especially as a male. That's why so many of them were converting in prison. And once they got out of prison, what they really loved was that the fact that Muslims set up schools for their children. And the schools are where you learned how to be disciplined. The schools where you learned how to be a good Muslim. along with the curriculum that they had, the standard curriculum that they had to take from what the education department did, they would then add all these other classes, Quranic teaching, learning, memorizing, and also all how to use social laws. So the social laws was right at the top, and I think that was fascinating to me that they came up with that. Now, how to respond to that? Well, first of all, do you have a response to these before I get into my responses?
Well, I mean, I can give you quickly my own take on that, and I would like actually to take them one by one. So, for instance, if we are talking about the first one, which they said Islam has a comprehensive guide to life, if that's the case, then how come Muslims always have to go to the Imam and ask questions if it has such a comprehensive guide to life? That means you're dependent on someone to tell you. Now, you may say, well, that's fair. You need to go and ask people. But now I take it to the next level. Which school of Sharia are you belonging to? Which branch of Islam do you belong to? And which one of those schools, or basically guides, if you wish, give you the most comprehensive guide to life? You see, there is diversity within that Islamic community itself, and you still have to rely on the so-called learned scholars versus, if you're just a nominal Muslim, let's call it, or maybe a Muslim that you would admit, I'm not really well versed on the Quran or the Hadith or the Sharia or the fiqh, and the list can go on and on and on. So right there, you're dependent on someone to tell you, and that someone could be right or could be wrong. It brought about disciplined living. Well, you see, that's the big problem with Islam. Islam relies on rules of laws themselves to tell you what is right and what is wrong. But at the same time, the same laws, by the way, that tell you what is wrong, sometimes they allow you to find a way to cover for what is wrong. Guess what happens? Sometimes people say, you know what, I know I'm sinning. Tomorrow I'm going to go and pray and do this and this and this. So actually, I see it as a negative because it provides you with excuse to do whatever you want, knowing that you can cover for that. I mean, we remember the story about the 9/11 hijackers. They went to strip bars and, the night before, thinking that, okay, tomorrow I'm going to die as a martyr, and somehow Allah will look the other way. So you can see how extreme that basically can go, and how deceitful that kind of thinking might be. I love the one about women, and I agree with you that you would hear this from women most of the time. But here's a quick question. Why do Muslim women feel safer in the West than when they are basically living in their own community? Here's what I mean by that. How many times, Jay, you've seen Muslim women hopping on an airplane covered, and the airplane will take off, and all of a sudden you don't know where they went because they all took off their covering? Why is that? You see what I mean?
Obviously, they want to be freed finally without any gazing eyes around them.
And here's another thing, Jay. I'm sure you thought about it. I'm sure you addressed it. Why do Muslim women not ask themselves this logical question? The Quran asks them to cover themselves to protect themselves from who? From Muslim men. Muslim men. Shouldn't the Muslim men be the ones that you should feel the safest among? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't understand the argument at all, actually. And then the idea that Islam is the only religion powerful enough to stand up to the Western, well, the mafia can stand up to each other. The Russians can stand up for that. I mean, if we want to use it this way, then we're going to start looking at groups and say, oh, they're more religious than Islam, if we're going to judge it by the fact that they are able to stand up to the drug dealers. What about the agency, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency? If they stand up to drug lords, does that mean they are more religious? I mean, we don't judge religion by who stand up for what. Now, are there faults in the Western society? Of course there is. But there is a big difference between a Western society and Christianity. And I admit, I used to be one of those followers of Islam who confused the two. You would claim the West is Christian, and that's where you judge Christianity based on these issues. So that's some of my take on these.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I had quite a bit to say about this. In fact, we may have to go into some more episodes.
Absolutely.
But I want to tell you what my response was, because I wrote this all up in my thesis. And many times I even told the guys and gals who were across the table from me, this is my response. And we would have a great discussion. Sometimes it'd go for 1 or 2 hours. It was a good way to really unpack this. Right at the front, this idea that it's a guide to life. When I look at what Islam offers, how the walk, talk, eat, drink, and sleeping, 24/7 part of it. Take a look at it. It's very Arab in its context. And it actually is a very 7th to 9th century Arabia. It's not a 21st century Arabia or even 21st century America. I was surprised that many of the Muslims, the guys, when I said, right now you're not using Arabic dress. In fact, none of you are dressed like an Arab. Yet, if you go to what the Quran says, look what it says in chapter 33, verse 59. For women, all women are to dress up so only their eyes are uncovered. That's it. Everything is to be covered. You're not doing that. So you're actually not really following a Muslim social laws. You're picking and choosing what you want to do. I see that you're still listening to music. And much of this music is rap. Much of it is really actually immoral compared to what Islam is allowing. Now that you come out of prison and now that you're here in the West, you've just gone back to your same music again. But there's no music in Islam.
Yeah, that's
Isn't
true.
that so bad? There's no, you can't use this kind of immoral talk in Islam. So you're pretty much creating Islam in your own image, not the Islam of the dress code. Because you know very well that the dress code that you did talk about, you're not even following. The only time you ever use this dress code when you go to the mosque.
Or to the Hajj or somewhere.
I said also, when you go to the mosque and you open up the Quran, are you allowed to read it in English or in Arabic? You have to read it in Arabic. When you memorize it, you memorize it in Arabic. But yet you speak English. You don't speak a word of Arabic. I said, even that you're not really following. And as far as the penal laws, really you want to go to those penal laws? You know what it says about stealing? You were in prison because you stole. It says in very clear that in the Quran, in chapter 2, verse 24, that you must cut off your hand for stealing. So you're not even going back to what the Quran says for you. You just went to a prison for a few years and now you're back out again. So what I want to do in the next episode is I want to continue these responses. But what I want to bring up is a quality of life world atlas that was put together. And at that time, I'm going to use the one from 1991. You can get the 2024, which is even more much more penalizing. But I want to look at the one that we were using back then at the time that I was doing this research. And I want to show you that in almost every case, what the Muslims were telling me is not what's happening in reality on the ground.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, brother. This is going to be a very exciting video series. I think it will be of benefit to many, and hopefully even to Muslims who have converted actually from Christianity or from atheism or whatever the case might be, for you to watch and listen. And we welcome, of course, your feedback, but please don't give us emotional arguments. We're looking for factual, logical, rational arguments. Until next episode, this is Fadi. Have a blessed day. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/CIRA International, or just click on the link below.